Tomas had prepared for the evening with all the care he could muster, knowing that Kat was unlike any other woman he had ever met. The moment he led her hand down the hotel corridor, the blindfold covering her face made him both nervous and excited. He wanted this gift to be more than just a romantic dinner, but also proof that he was worthy enough to enter her world, a world he had long felt like an outsider. When the door closed behind him, the soft sound of its hinges signaled a new beginning. He led her to a dining table decorated with candles, crystal glasses, and bright red roses. When the blindfold was removed, Kat was stunned, her eyes taking in the luxurious space but stopping at the white-covered bed at the end of the room. The fleeting frown on her face was quickly hidden by a forced smile, and she regained her composure to thank him, because Kat knew he had put a lot of thought into this evening. The kiss was a saving grace for both of them, a moment where Tomas believed he had touched her heart. He played her favorite music, opened a bottle of champagne, knowing that her family had high standards. Kat laughed, saying that she didn't think she would be such a challenge. But that laughter only reminded him of the initial moment when he first saw her. The fear that she would coldly reject him haunted him to this day. When Kat said she was glad he hadn't backed down, Tomas felt like he had passed through an invisible door that had once separated him from her world. Then, when Kat told him about Chelsea and her transformation under Anita's guidance, he realized that Kat was not only the girl he loved, but also the connection to a family with great influence. He brought in dinner, each dish perfectly arranged on the table, as if to prove that he was capable of meeting her family's expectations. But the biggest surprise was the fortune cookie placed on a silver tray, with a small but challenging inscription, "Just ask." In the flickering candlelight, Kat did not ask for jewelry, did not ask for a distant promise, but only to dance. He held out his hand, and the two of them spun around the small room, and the dance quickly led to a passionate kiss. They sat down on the bed, clothes falling, desire rising, as if everything would become one. But at that moment, Kat stopped, leaving a heavy silence that neither of them knew how to handle. Tomas looked at her with a confused look, not understanding why everything always stopped at the brink of not being able to go on. This was the third time she had refused, and he could no longer hide his confusion and disappointment. He asked, his voice heavy with doubt, but Kat remained silent, her eyes averted. Her vague answer that she did not want to explain only confused him more. Tomas insisted that sex could not be fun for him if it was not mutual. But instead of feeling understood, Kat jumped up from the bed, her eyes filled with uncertainty, her voice high-pitched, uttering an apology mixed with anger that she had ruined his fun. The moment became an invisible knife cut into Tomas's pride. In his heart, he was not only a disappointed lover, but also someone challenged by the cold wall Kat had built between them. She was like a maze both seductive and closed, into which he could never find his way. The third rejection was no longer a matter of one evening, but had become a giant question mark hanging over the entire relationship. It made him wonder, did she really want him, or was he just an experiment she wasn't ready to admit? Tomas began to feel the weight of pressure from himself and from the world around him. He didn't want to be the weak one, didn't want Kat to think she could completely control the scales. But deep down, he wasn't cruel enough to force it. It was the contradiction that made him uneasy. The desire to prove himself to the woman he loved mixed with the fear of becoming overbearing, the fear of losing the gentleness that had won him over. Kat, on the other hand, was fighting her own inner demons, the secrets she couldn't share, the wounds that kept her from letting go of her last barrier. She knew her silence was killing the trust in Tomas's eyes, but saying it out loud would probably hurt even more. The question hangs. Will this repeated rejection cause Tomas to retreat, or push him down a darker path, one where he must seek strength through power and control? The door he once bravely opened to enter Kat's world now threatens to close, but this time it may close with the violent slam of a wounded heart. In Tomas's eyes, love is slowly turning into a battlefield, where one side tries to keep secrets while the other struggles with challenged pride. And if they cannot find a way to reconcile, the relationship that began with candles, roses, and music may end in irreparable rifts. Deep down, Kat still wonders if her feelings for Tomas are true love, or just a series of emotions mixed with desire, respect, and hidden calculations that she dare not admit. She looks at him with tenderness, but at the same time builds up a distance like an invisible wall, keeping him from reaching the most secret part of her soul. Her repeated rejections are not simply avoidances, but the result of fears that have never subsided. Fear of losing control, fear of losing her value in the eyes of a man whose background she knows is different, fear that once she commits too deeply, she will not be able to turn back. Behind her confident exterior, Kat has always felt bound by family standards, by the scrutiny of society, by the pressure that every choice she makes can affect the honor of an entire family. Uncomfortable in rejecting Tomas, Kat is not necessarily doubting love, but is not ready to go all the way. For her, sex cannot be just an instant gratification. It is tied to the certainty of the future, to marriage and commitment. She fears that if she gives too soon, she will lose the only fragile power she can use to keep the relationship going in the direction she wants. In Kat's mind, keeping her body meant keeping her choice, keeping the balance between them. But at the same time, she was conflicted by the fear that Tomas would misunderstand, would feel offended, and from there the distance between them would widen. Tomas was different. For him, the elaborate preparations for that evening were not just a romantic act, but a demonstration of sincerity and true love. He believed that he had put everything into it: patience, courage, and the desire to prove himself to the woman he loved. But when Kat refused, he felt like all his efforts were denied. A feeling of betrayal arose in his heart, not because she chose to keep her distance, but because she refused to share the real reason. He craved honesty, craved an explanation, because Kat's silence made him feel controlled, like someone standing outside a closed door without a key. The more Tomas thought about it, the more he realized that he wasn't angry about not being physically satisfied, but angry about being pushed out of Kat's inner world. For him, each rejection was like a stab in the pride, and it gradually created cracks that could turn into skepticism, even cruelty in the way he treated her. Where he had initially approached Kat with patience and gentleness, now there was a strange hardness rising in his heart, as if he had to take control before losing everything. Kat felt this change clearly, and that made her even more confused. She knew Tomas's love was real, but at the same time she felt pressured to respond. There were moments when she felt cherished, but there were also times when she realized that his expectations were too high, making her feel like she was being pushed into a corner. She didn't want to lose him, but she didn't want to lose herself either. The biggest question Kat faces is no longer, does she love Tomas? But, does she dare to love him with all her being? Meanwhile, Tomas is at a dangerous crossroads. Either continue to be gentle, accepting to wait for Kat in uncertainty, or turn his vulnerability into a hard shell, and then find a way to force her to give him the commitment he craves. Any choice will shape their future together, and the fragile balance between love and power can be broken at any moment. This rejection becomes a clear line in the relationship between Kat and Tomas, like a sharp slash that splits the fragile trust they have worked so hard to build. For Tomas, that moment was no longer a mere disappointment, but a milestone that forced him to look back at everything. He had done too much, had put all his trust and desire into Kat, but in return he only received avoidance and silence. He began to feel that this love was like a gamble, where he kept betting without knowing the outcome, and the third rejection was like a wake-up call. A new but haunting thought appeared in his mind. Maybe it was time to separate himself, to withdraw from the spiral of unfulfilled expectations, to let Kat face the emptiness without him by her side. That thought might not become an immediate decision, but it planted a seed of insecurity, which could sprout into action whenever patience finally ran out. Kat, on the other hand, was left torn. She was not blind to Tomas's disappointment, nor was she indifferent to the pain he had endured, but her fear remained, persistent and complicated, like invisible strings that bound her. She wondered if she truly loved him enough to let go of her barriers, to give herself completely in exchange for the closeness he craved. If Tomas left, would she be able to continue as if he were not there? Or would his absence become a cruel reminder that she had let a true love slip away? In every moment she looked at him, Kat felt both yearning and fear, as if her love for Tomas were a fire she could not reach out to touch for fear of being burned. The question hanging over both of their heads was not only whether they truly loved each other, but whether they had the courage to face what that love would entail. Kat knows that if she continues to stay silent, if she continues to choose defense over honesty, she will gradually lose her chance. But honesty can also make her face uncontrollable reactions from Tomas, a man who is always torn between sincerity and possessive instinct. This rejection is not just an event, but a turning point. Either it will break everything, forcing the two to go their separate ways, or it will become a test fire for both of them to truly face their true selves and find the reason why they chose each other in the first place. Their future is now like a cracked mirror, just a small impact can shatter. Tomas can leave to preserve his dignity, forcing Kat to face the fear of losing him for the first time. Kat can choose to be brave, say what she has been holding back for so long, or continue to live in a complicated spiral of misunderstanding and distance. They were both at a crossroads, and that rejection signaled that the choice that was about to come would no longer decide just one night, but the fate of the entire relationship. The silence that followed that rejection stretched like a stifling void, casting a shadow over their every move. Tomas, who had always been patient and gentle, now felt like he was in a spiral with no way out. He walked through the hotel room with a heavy heart, realizing that the roses, candles, and champagne no longer had the power to bridge the gap between them. A decision was forming in his heart. If this love only made him feel like he had to beg, had to constantly prove, then maybe it was time to stop. His pride, which had been the fulcrum for him to reach out to Kat in the first place, now became the reason for him to consider retreating. The thought was both painful and a relief, because through the pain there was a glimmer of hope that if Kat truly loved him, she wouldn't let him go. Kat watched him from behind, silently observing every movement, every frown that crossed his face. She saw that he was changing, that what she had feared was now closer, that Tomas might leave her. It made Kat face the question she had been avoiding for so long. Could she go on living if she lost him? The answer made her heart ache. She remembered the moments when he protected her, when he gently encouraged her, when he defied their differences to prove that their love could overcome all prejudice. It wasn't an illusion, nor a power play. It was real love, and she knew it was there. But at the same time, Kat also saw clearly that the fear had never disappeared. The fear that her family would not accept her. The fear that if she gave everything, she would be irreparably hurt. In that torn moment, Kat felt like she was standing between two cliffs. On one side was Tomas, his sincere but risky love. On the other side were the rules, the pressures, and the perfect image that her family wanted of her. The rejection was not because she did not desire him, but because she did not dare to break down the last barrier that kept her safe. However, when she saw Tomas gradually withdraw his gentleness, replaced by coldness and silence, she felt the fear of losing him was even more terrible. In that moment, Kat understood that if she continued to be silent, she would push him away with her own hands, and there might never be a chance to hold on. Tomas had not said goodbye yet, but the invisible distance between them seemed to be growing. He no longer touched her hand naturally, no longer looked at her with eyes full of hope. In his heart, doubt was gradually replacing trust, and with each passing day, he wondered if he was being held back in this relationship just because Kat had not dared to admit that she did not love him enough. His love was being tested, and if Kat did not step forward, he would be the one to turn away, leaving behind a void that could not be filled. Kat realized this more clearly than anyone else. In the following nights, she tossed and turned, thinking about Tomas's eyes and the sadness in his forced smile. She wondered how much she would give to keep him. Was it worth breaking the rigid rules, admitting to her family that she chose love over high standards? Or would she continue to live in a shell of perfection, only to live each day with the regret that she had let go of the only man who truly loved her for who she was? The third rejection, therefore, was no longer just an emotional incident. It was a turning point, forcing both of them to face the most fundamental choices. Tomas could leave, leaving Kat with a void that forced her to face the truth that love cannot exist if only one person gives their all. Kat is able to face her fears, to tell them the truth, and in doing so, she not only keeps Tomas, but also the part of her heart that yearns to be loved. In the darkness of the long nights, where they both wonder about the future, the question hangs like an unanswered fate. Is this the end, or just a necessary turn for them to find each other again, truly and completely?